justice for all.
Vice Chair, you can continue with those items.
Like for the audience, thank you for coming. If you could please introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
My name is John Russo, from Troop 19 Middleton.
John Russo, Sr.
Lee Russo, parents of John Russo.
Kira Clemenzi, Math and Science Specialist, Middleton Public Schools.
Amanda Tarosi, and I'm one of the reading teachers here at Fuller Meadow.
Okay, great, thank you, welcome.
John's going to have to earn 2 Eagle badges because we like having him at all these meetings.
It's
Keep him going.
all good.
Do you have any remarks at this point?
Me? Oh, yes. I guess I'll just start with my presentation. So thank you, school committee, for allowing me to come over.
Come right up. Yep, you know the drill.
Thank you. Yes, of course. All right. Oops, excuse me. Sorry.
John, this is a new group. We
Yes,
have
of
2
course.
new members, so maybe you could just give a little bit of a background.
Yeah, so my name's John Russo. I'm a Boy Scout at Troop 19 Middleton. I've been working on my Eagle project here at Fuller Meadow. I've been working on an outdoor classroom outside near the old preschool playground, and I think it was 2 weeks ago, we just finished the project. We just finished mulching in the area, and now the project's good for use for the children. And I've heard so many great comments about it, and I think a lot of the students, a lot of the teachers love the project. So tonight I just want to do the last presentation just to show the pictures of like how the project progressed, and I have a few things to sign as well for like fundraising and stuff. That's on my final Eagle paperwork that I have to turn in before I can go for a board of review and get my Eagle rank. So, and that's important. And getting that. So I just want to start with the project
So this is going to be behind us,
presentation.
everybody.
Yeah, and I thank Mr. Morrison for putting that up. So just
Dr. Carrero, yes.
Yeah. Dr. Carrero, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's just start. So that was what the projects looked like in the beginning. That was around like June to August, and there was just nobody was using it. It was abandoned, and I just wanted to clean it up. That was sort of my project, and I just wanted to make it more useful for the school, give them something to use it for. So the first part of the project was to remove everything, remove shrubbery, remove all the equipment, and we brought a bunch of people from the troop. They removed everything in the site, and it was a very good day to remove stuff. So, and that was what it looked like after we removed everything. There's a little concrete pad that we didn't expect that it was going to be hard to remove. So, but we took care of that a little bit later. So. The next part of it was to dig holes and make footings for the benches, which I fundraised for, and we had to buy a yard of concrete for all the footings as well. We also made a little cement pad for like in the future if they want a storage locker, and we talked about that a little bit as well. And we also put in the benches a couple weeks later after that. When the concrete hardened, and I think the benches came out pretty good. We made them as lined as possible, as plumb as possible, and it came out pretty well, and I really liked the colors that came out with the benches. And then this was the last part that we did a few weeks ago, and this was the mulching, and I got some mulch from Middleton Supply. They gave me a good deal for it. Yeah, and so yeah, we honestly we were expecting that it was going to be a hard job because there was a lot of just wheelbarrowing and a lot of shoveling of the mulch, but actually we did it pretty well. It got done in at least 3 hours, I'll tell you that. I was expecting some more time, but and we just filled it in, and it's my grandfather spreading out the mulch, so he loved to work a lot on this project, and I told him not to work a lot, but I couldn't control him, but that was okay. And that's kind of the final finished product, and that's what it looks like today, and
like a
hopefully the
computer
kids are
rendering, doesn't
using
it?
it.
Does.
Yeah, it
The
looks like a
colors are
computer.
like so vivid.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, so that's what.
Yellow would be Google.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
one of our adults in the troop used to work for Google, so that's why he
Does
kind of
look-
was like, yeah.
Oh,
happy
okay.
Yellow, but the 3 colors look pretty good.
do?
I thought they symbolize like transitioning from Fuller Meadow to Masco, because like Fuller Meadow's kind of green, and then you have Howe Manning, which is like blue, and then Masco's red. So
Well, that's pretty
kinda,
cool.
I didn't expect that to happen, but I'm quite surprised. So
You could have told us you totally planned it, and we would have believed you.
Of course, I wasn't. Yeah, so this is the project details as well. So 256 combined work hours, so that's everyone who helped out in the project, and that was over 6 days, or 6 work days. And usually those work days were around 4 hours and stuff. Some of them were a little bit in like the afternoon and stuff. And then sometimes they went a little bit over schedule because when we were digging, we didn't notice that we didn't know that how hard the ground was. We had to rent a jackhammer, and it was hard to dig into the ground, so we had to rent jackhammers, and it was a lot of work for that one. So that was something that we didn't expect, but we got it done, so I'm happy. So it was around 28 yards of mulch around there. So yeah, 30. So, and it's 1 yard of concrete and 6 benches. And we raised $3,600 around there for the project over the course of the year. And it started in August, and we finished a few weeks ago. So I'm pretty happy that the project's done, and I'm kind of excited what it's gonna do in the future for Fulham Meadow. So I'm very happy with it. So I think that's my
That's worthy of
presentation.
a round of applause.
Thank you so much, really.
Yeah,
I just walked by there today,
course,
so
welcome,
it was
yes.
really nice.
I'm
Very
very
nice.
happy
Good
how
use
the
of the
project
space.
turned out.
I want to just say that John was really easy to work with. Every time he came to meet with me, he was very prepared. He sent a lot of emails. He had a lot of drawings. He had a vision before I did, even out there. But every step along the way, he would ask me my opinion or ask me to get the teachers' opinions about things. So I'm really appreciative that while he had his own vision, he really took my opinion and the teachers' opinions into consideration, and it's exactly what the teachers had asked for. So it really was above and beyond. Teachers were using it today, so it really is fantastic.
It's great. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's perfect too as far as the shading in the afternoon. Is totally shaded in the afternoon, so it's beautiful out
Awesome.
there. Yeah.
That's great. So
We have a question
I'm very
from
happy that
Mr.
the
Russo.
kids are-
Dr. Farrell, there is funds left over. I know we built the pad for a locker. So Mr. Hoppin, it's separate from this project, but this summer we will build a locker once you decide on.
Wow. Okay.
Talked about it last night.
I would love
so-
to do that.
So
Yeah.
we'll disperse the funds that are left over
Perfect.
to you, and then we'll put together whatever kind of locker.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great.
John, remind me how old you are again?
I am 17,
17.
and I'm almost done with junior year. This is the last week.
Last week of school.
Yeah, and
Finals.
It's been pretty hectic. I'll tell you that.
Sure it is.
I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask you that is because I would agree with Dr. Carrero that, there's 2 key things that are really add to success in life, and one is being prepared, and one is follow through, right? And every conversation I've had with you, there's always a preparation level, and there's always follow through on the back end. And there are adults who don't always do that, right? And so
Right,
at
of
17,
course.
the fact that you are always prepared for what it is you're about to engage in, but then there's the follow through on the back end, that speaks to an attention to detail, which is very, very important. And you can see the attention to detail that was so apparent in that project. So kudos.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Well, thank you.
We're going to miss having you come here.
I know.
It's
course.
been a lot of fun.
Yes.
There are a lot of other boys in the troop, so.
Oh, good.
So I have 2 sheets with signatures, and I wrote down in black pen where it's assigned. So it's for the beneficiary. I don't know if you want Mr. Morrison to sign or anything. but-
That's the beneficiary
Can I
of the
sign
school.
it in a blue pen or?
Oh yeah,
does it-
sure.
okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So right there, and then right there, of course, and just the signature and the date. So
And you
I will
booked it?
say I had John as a 6th grader, and it's really awesome to see you come back and give back to your community and do something that is giving back to the school that you started at. It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
I'll give you back the clicker as well.
Thank you very much.
yep, no worries. All right. Yes. Thank
Good
you
work.
so much. Mr.
We really
Morrison.
appreciate
Thank
it. You did a great job. Great job. Mom and Dad, too? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Really good having you guys come to the meeting. Thanks a million.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your support of
Thanks
John's
so much.
project.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you out there.
All right. We don't have any reports about the committees right now, so we can
Okay.
go right to minutes.
Oh, great. Okay, so as part of our process, we review minutes from the previous meetings. We found that this year we started reviewing them prior to coming to the school committee meeting. And it really works well because what we do is we all read through the minutes, and we make any edits, highlights, any questions that might not correspond with what we remember from the meeting before. And we have Lorraine to thank for our meeting minutes, and she has honestly like restructured the way we do our minutes, and it's 100 times better than, than it's been in the past. So that's great. Okay, so at this point, why don't we go into the minutes where Jen and Natasha weren't part of the meeting. You don't have to comment on the minutes. And Christy, were you here?
Yep.
Okay. So if you go into, let's see.
And then usually when you want to make an edit, you do the suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a Word doc right now. I'm trying to put it into a Google
Yeah, you got to put it into Google Docs.
Docs, yeah, in order to. So if you open it,
So if you go to your 6/5/19 meeting, go down. At the top, if you go to that, yeah. And then go into our meeting, 6/5, right there. And then at the top, there's different, the financials are here, food services, and meeting minutes that need to be approved. So you can find these every, what I do typically when we get the agenda ahead of time, I read through the agenda and it reminds me to go in to do the meeting minutes. We'll also send a reminder as well, just because it moves the meeting along so much faster. Okay.
Right? Preliminary.
So, and you guys can pretty much figure out the outline of it.
It should say MSC
that's what he was here.
5119. Let me see again. It's not this one.
Nope. Nope. You want to search for on your Google Drive. Usually I just search for the MSC. And then you see if there's a folder that pops up with MSC. Yeah.
That one, right?
Probably, yeah. Go in that. Then go in
All right, this is a little different, right?
this.
Courtney did them.
Oh, that's why.
Courtney,
Okay.
Courtney came to that
I'm
meeting.
like,
Okay,
shoot.
Yeah,
Maybe they weren't.
Courtney came to
Everyone.
that meeting.
Okay.
And then there'll be a folder for minutes. That's what I clicked on last time. That's it?
I was not at this meeting, so
That's what
I
I clicked on
actually
last time, and that's what, you know what I
can't
mean?
approve it either.
You can, we actually checked on that.
And mine.
Yeah?
You can still approve minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
We
think I
actually
shared
checked
with
with
you.
MASC on that. So you're still okay to approve.
Okay.
I don't think I have
They
that
look
one.
Yeah.
spot on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from
Second.
May.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
That's how that works.
That's good. So we are off to school committee reorganization under reports. And I think just before getting into that, just to do quick introductions around the table, just so our new members know who all the players are around the table as well. So we welcome Jen and we welcome Natasha, both our new school committee members. We thank Amy and Mark again for the years of service on our committee, and we welcome our two members who are joining us. And Matt, if we can just start with you and just go right around, just so everybody knows who everybody is.
Sure. Hi, Matt LaCava, the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
James Forza, Principal at Hal Manning School.
Diane Carrero, principal here at Fuller Meadow.
Scott Morrison, Superintendent.
Kristen Richardson, parent and school committee member. Natasha Bansfield, school committee member and parent. Lorraine Jackson, recording secretary.
Christy Carroll, parent and school committee member. Jen Pesci, parent and school committee member.
Fred Clapp, school committee member. Steve Greenberg, Assistant Superintendent of Operations.
Very good. All right, so this meeting, the June meeting, is typically when we do what's called reorganization. And so in your drive, you'll see a document titled File DBA, School Committee Organizational Meeting. That's our actual policy. As members of the committee know that have been on the committee for a while, we did a complete policy review a while back. Kristen was instrumental in helping with that. And so I'm just going to read this out loud, more for the benefit of our audience in terms of how we reorganize. So for the purpose of organizing, the school committee at its first regular meeting following the district's annual elections will elect from its membership a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk, all of whom will hold their respective offices for a term of 1 year or until a successor is elected. In the event the chair and vice chair are no longer members of the school committee, the senior member will act as a chair pro tem. A majority of members of the school committee constitutes a quorum, and the election will proceed as follows. Nominations for the office of chair will be made from the floor. The chair will be elected by a majority roll call vote of the members present and voting. If no nominee receives a majority vote, the election will be declared null and void and nominations will be reopened. Upon the election, the new chair will then preside, calling for the election of the vice chair and the clerk, the secretary, in that order. The procedure used for their election will be the same as that for electing the chair. Any vacancy among the offices occurring between organizational meetings will be filled by a member elected by the committee. The election will be conducted as described above. And then following the election of the officers at its organizational meeting, the school committee may proceed into such regular or special business as scheduled on the agenda. And so one other piece that we will work on tonight, if you close out of that policy document and you go back into the drive and you click on MSC reorganization, and Lorraine, I'll ask you to type right in here when we get to this part.
Yep.
So along with selecting our chair, our vice chair, and our secretary, and also identifying who our other members will be, we'll also have tonight to choose our representatives to the school union committee. So we have a tri-town school union committee made up of 3 members of the Middleton School Committee Middleton School Committee, 3 members of the Topsfield School Committee, and 3 members of the Boxford School Committee. The chair is always one of those members. So whoever is the chair, elected as chair tonight, will automatically be a member of the tri-town union committee, plus 2 more people. School committee recording secretary, hopefully Lorraine is willing to stay on with us as we head into the new year. Negotiation subcommittee, communications and public relations, handbook, policy review. We'll go through all these momentarily, but these are the different committees and representatives that we will need as we go through the reorg. So to start the reorganization process, I will ask from a motion on the floor if someone wants to nominate someone to be the chair of the Middleton School Committee.
I nominate Kristen.
Second.
Seconded by Freddie. Do we have any other nominations for chair of the Middleton School Committee? Hearing none, we will enter into a roll call vote for Kristen as chair of the Middleton School Committee. Freddie, we'll start with you.
Fred Clapp, aye.
Jen Pesci, aye.
Christy Carroll, aye.
To you, Natasha.
Natasha Bansfield, aye.
Yeah, and you can vote.
Kristen Richardson, aye.
All right, we have a unanimous decision for a chairperson. Congratulations, Kristen.
Thank you.
We have a new chair, and I'll now turn the meeting back over to Kristen as our chair, who will follow the same process for the vice chair and the secretary position.
Okay. So thank you. And so do I have a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Christy Carroll.
I nominate Fred Clapp.
Oh, boy. Would anyone like to discuss this?
I nominated first.
So we have 2 nominations on the floor.
So this would be the backup, if I were unable to.
You have to second.
Oh yeah, someone has to second one of them.
All right, I'll second Christy.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Since I'm gonna do the so I think I'm doing the TTU, I'd prefer someone else do the assistant chair on this.
Vice chair?
I nominate Natasha Banfield.
Do we have a second for Natasha?
Get your feet wet, Jen.
Can we do that with someone who?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not
Second.
unheard of.
I second Natasha.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Fred Clapp, aye.
Jen Pesci, aye. Christy Carroll, aye.
Natasha Bansfield, aye. Kristen Richardson, aye.
All right. So vice chair.
Congratulations.
And it's just appearing on the screen immediately. It's
Exactly.
amazing.
Exciting.
I still don't even think I have it.
Okay, anyone, let's do secretary. Can someone make a motion to nominate a secretary for school committee?
I nominate Christy Carroll.
I'll second that.
Fred Clapp, aye.
Jen Pesci, aye. Christy Carroll, aye.
Natasha Bansfield, aye. Kristen Richardson, aye.
All right. So
Okay.
now Lorraine will note our other members under the other members section.
I did
Now we don't need
for the name of it.
Kristen as chair. We don't
the
necessarily
drive.
need votes for these
That's
other
how-
positions. These are just sort of like, can we find general agreement among the
Okay.
group? So you are automatically going to be considered a representative to the. I'll write your name in here, Kristen Richardson. You will be a member of the Tri-Town Union Committee.
Yep.
And so we would need 2 additional members to serve, with the caveat that Middleton has the wheel this year. And so we'll need a chair from the Middleton Committee. I think Christy has expressed an interest in being chair of the Tri-Town Union Committee because Middleton will have the wheel. So it would make logical sense that Christy would also be, if there's general agreement, again, we don't need to vote this, it's just sort of like nodding heads, general agreement that Christy would also serve. What a feeling. Yes, 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 good. So Christy Carroll. And then we would need a 3rd member as a representative to the school union committee.
Would anyone else like to be on that? We meet every other
Quarterly,
month?
like quarterly.
Quarterly?
Yeah.
It'll be here in Middleton.
Yay.
It rotates around,
Exactly.
so woo!
Be after
We're
our
not in
meetings.
Boxford, we're not in Topsfield. That's where it rotates
Nice.
around. Christy would be our chair. And it's just another great opportunity to interact with other members of the school committees in Topsfield and Boxford.
So it's one meeting every other month.
It's like quarterly, 4 or 5
Oh,
meetings a
sorry,
year.
okay. So
Yeah.
And you can always attend. You don't have, so,
Right.
of course, we want someone on the committee. You would be on the voting committee. So if we were taking a vote
3 people.
about
Yeah.
anything, there's
Yeah.
a lot of union-related
Yeah.
votes that we make, really important ones. For
Yeah,
example, hiring our superintendent, like things that we share as a union, decisions that we share as a union. So if you want to be on the voting side, then you would volunteer now. You can always come to a TTU meeting though, and be a member. So, who would like to be on the TTU committee?
do you want to do it?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, Jen. Great. Thank you.
All right. School committee recording secretary Lorraine, are you willing to stay with us?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. We'll write your name in there. Thank you very much.
I nominate Lorraine Jackson.
Excellent. We're going to nominate you, Fred.
All in favor?
Negotiation subcommittee is always the chair. We are just in the process right now of negotiating with our teachers association, and Amy was voted last time to kind of stay on that. We voted Amy in as a person where she had been with us all along through that process. So Amy and Christy will sort of see this process through to the end. And then as we think about any other negotiation things that might come up or within the next 3 years, so Kristen as chair, you'd automatically this year be on it once we finish up, if anything else comes up afterwards. And then we would need a second, typically.
Anyone else?
Negotiation subcommittee.
Anyone else interested in being negotiation subcommittee?
You were our alternate this time.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it. Freddie clap.
Thanks, Freddie.
Thanks, Freddie. And then we can roll through the rest.
Okay. So communications and public relations liaison. And actually, Scott, if you could help me
Yeah.
communicate what I know what some
Some
of
of these
mine
are,
when
yeah.
I was, the ones I was on, but
So that's our communications subcommittee. We had worked to try to figure out if we could get one of the things that committee worked on was trying to see if we could get an intern. Like, what's one of the things that we, around the tri-town, it's always hard to communicate all the work that we're doing because everyone's so busy doing the work. And so we thought about, wouldn't it be great if we had like a Merrimack intern or an Eckhart intern that could help us with communications. And so that committee continues to meet. Our website is finally coming into focus, which is great. We're excited about that, our updated website. And so it's those pieces serving as, at a meeting like this, communicating out, maybe talking with principals and hearing some things and serving as a, communicator of what's happening in the schools, but then also a person serving on a tri-town committee to figure out our tri-town communication. So it's basically a tri-town committee. Would be one member from this committee, one member from Boxford, one member from Topsfield, and myself.
I would be interested in being on that.
Perfect. Handbook, I can tell you that we are working hard. We're going to talk about this at the union committee tomorrow night. We have, much like we used to have a policy book in Topsfield, a policy book in Middleton, and a policy book in Boxford that were all about this thick. We now have one tri-town school union policy book, which is great. We currently have a school handbook in Topsfield, a school handbook in Boxford, and a school handbook in Middleton. 80% of the handbook is the same because it's rooted in policy, like all the policy work that we did. And so in the past, there'd be a member or two who would meet with the principals during the summer, and it would be sort of a little bit of a heavy lift of like rewriting the handbook and making the changes and updating and so on and so forth. We're trying to get to a point, James is on that committee and principals from other towns are on that committee as well. We're trying to get to a point where we have one tri-town handbook that's just rooted in all the policies that would be available online, that like once it's done until we change the policy book again. And then sort of a thin opening, which is like, hey, how many? This is when we start school, this is when we end, and here's where the bathrooms are, and here's, all these things. Fuller Meadow would have something like that. So the handbook wouldn't be that thick. It would be much thinner with a link out to all the policies that are connected. So the lift on this, I think you would agree, is probably lighter than it's been, or will be lighter than it's been in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still good to have a school committee rep, but this will be not a heavy lift. How's that for a sell? Not a heavy lift.
Really, I wouldn't want to do that.
Any takers? nominate Steve Greenberg. Kidding. Can't do that. Easy peasy.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Great. Thank you, Natasha. Policy Review Subcommittee, Kristen and two others from the other towns and myself. This was a heavy lift, 18 to 24 months ago, probably, a big heavy lift. The work is done. This is a group that if we came across a policy that we thought it needed to review individual policies, we would bring a member of Middleton, a member of Boxford, a member of Topsfield together to review the policy. Again, the heavy work was done on this. I mean, I don't know if you're interested in
I'll do
hanging
it,
on
yeah.
that one where
Yeah,
you and I
that's
have the
fine.
experience together.
Yep.
That might be
No
great.
problem.
FinCom liaison is just what it says when we get into budget season. Steve, do you know if George will be our liaison next year?
I spoke, in speaking with George yesterday.
Yeah.
It's possible that he may be transitioning out as liaison, and possibly
Okay.
we could have someone else assigned.
I mean, Steve really serves as sort of our committee's liaison to FinCom, but it's good to have a school committee member also, just Steve can communicate with and talk to around items that are coming up at the Finance Committee. So that's another one that is really during budget season where the work comes into play. And again, there's no other meetings to attend. It's just sort of serving as a liaison between FinCom and school committee.
If you, in your terms, that one's not a heavy lift.
Not a heavy lift.
No.
Yeah.
Anyone? I nominate Christie.
Christie, do you gladly?
Not a
accept
lot
the
of
nomination?
meetings?
No, like none.
I'd say one.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
one,
one
you
or
know,
two,
when we
maybe.
go in front
Yeah.
of the Finance Committee, it's one.
Just Saturday
Good
and
against
Sunday.
It's
Yeah,
just-
exactly. And Friday
8
night.
a.m.
Yeah,
Just every Saturday?
exactly.
Super easy.
Not even Saturday. I don't think you know, Saturday's been.
It's quality time with
Yeah,
Steve
would you
Greenberg, is what it is.
I'll do it.
Freddie's in. You want to do FinCom? Yes?
Yeah.
Awesome.
When will we know when our
Like Friday.
FinCom rep? You know, just
I don't know.
we've
what-
had that
the
relationship
meeting,
with George for so long.
I know.
That's been like
That's
10
a
years.
big deal. Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm thinking they meet next week to reorganize. I thought that's what he said to me yesterday.
Okay.
So we should know relatively shortly. You know?
And is there an expectation? So yeah, this was like happening already before I even came to school committee. Is there an expectation of the from the finance committee that joins with us? Is it is an expectation that they will be at our meetings, or was
Yeah.
that something that George did because
George-
he saw the
George
value
did
in
it.
George did it.
George,
Yeah.
I think we'll see the rep maybe during budget season.
I
You know, a
would, I would
Saturday
agree
meeting or-
possibly with that.
you know.
That from just speaking from my perspective, the relationship that we
Yeah.
had and the George attending the meetings over the last couple of years is unique.
You're very
Yeah.
unique.
Yes.
Okay.
So compared to the other two towns, in my experience with our finance committee liaisons in the other two towns, it is very unique.
It's just during budget season that you tend to see them.
Yes, yeah.
We enjoyed having George here because
Yeah.
he would hear about what we were talking about, what funds, you know, what we were hoping to fund, what programs were out there that needed, you know, our support, and so
Okay.
they were able. You know, he ultimately was a liaison that went back to the finance committee
Correct.
and,
Oh, wow.
you know, championed or explained or,
Sure,
you know,
that's nice.
yeah, it was really,
Yeah, it was amazing.
it was helpful. Okay, sorry.
Shared Services Town Committee is just the committee of the whole. It's something this by law we have to have. It's something that we'll probably never even access. There's a law on shared services that if we ever wanted to, you know, like share technology services with the town, we would talk about it at a school committee.
Okay,
But by law, we need to have that committee. And so that's on there, and it's just the committee as the whole.
okay.
School council PTO liaison is pretty self-explanatory. You know, attending a school council meeting here or there, or a PTO meeting here or there, just to kind of, again, hear the feedback and the conversation and some of those things.
It's a great one. I've been on it and Freddie's been on it.
Council one?
Yeah,
Because I've been on that for the last year or two, so that's a good one.
it is.
Doesn't
It is.
meet,
It's good for new, you
it
know.
meets, what, every other month?
Usually that's the cycle. It's about every other month. 45 minutes if we can.
Yeah,
sometimes
right
we
after
can
school.
verbose and we
Do
keep
that.
talking.
All right, Jen,
That's a
that'd be
good
great.
one. It's right
So
at
we
Hal
do one
Manning.
for both Hal Manning and Fuller Meadow. So,
Full Meadow?
okay, all right,
Doesn't matter.
great.
Has to be both.
Natasha, are you
I can do Hal Manning.
great? Perfect. Perfect.
Wellness Committee, we have a very active Wellness Committee. I would say probably the most active of the three towns, which is great.
I'm actually on that wellness committee.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. does that make me more likely to be the liaison?
If
or
you'd like
less?
to.
Okay,
That's up to
great.
you.
All right, yeah,
It's
I'll do,
really
I
up-
mean, I'm already gonna be at the meeting,
Might be a
so.
Yeah, you'll be
conflict
wearing
of
dual
interest.
hat anyway.
Right. What's that, Fred?
Might be a conflict of interest.
Not really.
Facilities liaison is something new that we started recently in the sense of if we have building-based projects, we'd have a school committee rep help us, like if we, we're thinking of changing all the shades in every classroom. Obviously talk with the teachers and our school administration, but just having a school committee rep to work with Steve Clifford on decisions that are related to facilities. And again, there's no big projects coming down the pike, but just someone to sort of be that liaison with facilities.
Okay, anyone interested in? I'm fine, I'll do it. Unless Freddie really wants it.
Freddie was about to say yes.
I was about to say, who was on it last year?
I can look. I think you were.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You're welcome.
Did a good job.
You could do it. Freddie, by all means. You'd probably add more value.
Sick leave.
All right.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you.
I'll look, but sick leave bank committee is within the teacher contract. There is a sick leave bank that when our decisions need to be made about the sick leave bank, this is when teachers in Unit A all contribute days to the sick leave bank, and if there's a teacher who needs to access sick leave around their regular time, they make a request to the sick leave bank, and then that request is voted and deliberated on by myself, teachers, a member of my office, typically HR, Judy Durkee, and a member of the school committee. Amy has served in that role in the past as chair. It probably makes sense, Kristen, for you to serve in that role.
Sure.
Start time representative. We're keeping this on there just to have a rep. I have not heard of any meetings that are coming up, but it may rekindle with a new superintendent at Masco. I don't know the direction that will head, but that just seems to make sense to me to continue in that role. Again, no pressure. That's been a chair role in the past, so.
I just know,
We could do you in an alternate.
that would be great.
Okay. How was that for problem solving? Good?
I like that.
That was good. Excellent.
Great problem solving.
We need an alternate for start time, because that could become a little bit of a heavy lift in the event that conversation is jump-started.
It's a very important
Hugely important.
role.
I'm actually interested in that, so unless somebody else really wants to be the alternate, I'll do it.
Go for it. I think it'll be good for
I think it's
like someone to get exposed to
Absolutely.
it, because the people who have been exposed to it, it goes deep in terms of being able to bring the message back amongst the tri-town.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you, Natasha.
Safety team, same. This is a tri-town committee. This will be an important role as well. Mark served on this committee with us this year. We got a lot done. Actually, one of the things that we're moving on is that Crisis Go communication app that will really help. That's been purchased, and we're in the process of doing a lot of the back end setup. We voted that, I think, at our last committee meeting. And so this is one member to serve on a tri-town team. It's myself, Middleton, Topsfield, Boxford, one member from each, small group of 4 of us, just working on school safety.
How often do you think that one will meet?
Last year was a little bit more involved because we were vetting vendors. This year, I think, if I had to guess, I would say maybe once every 8 to 10 weeks, something like that.
Freddie, do you have interest in that one?
It seems like you do.
I have some interest, but
Take it.
But I defer if you want.
Nope.
I'll do that one.
Awesome.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. CREST, we have 2 consortiums and collaboratives that we work with for students with different learning profiles who may need a different environment. Superintendents on the North Shore serve on the boards. Well, it's actually a superintendent or a school committee member. It can be either. I think historically in the past, those meetings have been attended by the superintendent within the tri-town, my predecessor and myself. If there's a school committee member that would, rather attend, certainly that is okay. But I'm happy to continue as your representative to the CREST board and to the North Shore Education Consortium.
Accepted.
Okay. Anyone else feeling the desire to? Okay. Nope. Good.
That's great.
And then legislative liaison, same thing. I attend the meetings with our legislative staff who serve in all the various capacities, whether it's the House or the Senate, across our 3 towns, and meet regularly with all of them. So I'm happy to continue in that capacity if the committee so desires.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Moving right along. Thank you, everybody, for your work on that. We will. Internet will organize all this among the 3 towns and then get it back so everybody knows what group they're on. But this will always be in the drive. If you forget what group you have signed up for, it's there for you at all times. 2 other quick things from me. I am very excited about our summer admin meeting. We do 2 leadership meetings in the summertime where we sort of close out one year and begin to do prep for the following year. We bring the entire leadership team together on one day of the summer. It's June 24th. And then on June 25th, we bring the smaller group of the leadership team together. That's Monday and a Tuesday. On that Monday, we always try to find a different location or activity to engage in with the leadership team. We're actually heading into Suffolk Construction. John Fish, I believe is his name, is the CEO of Suffolk Construction. I met a member of his team at a conference this year. We struck up a conversation, and their headquarters are in Roxbury. And we are going to head in on June 24th as an entire leadership team, see their facility, learn about how they're using technology in the workplace, learn about what they're looking for in their employees. 3 of us went in, Steve Goditis, myself, and Christine Elliott went in to visit the site about 6-8 weeks ago. And I'm excited to have the leadership team meeting there. I think it'll be a nice connection for our staff to make connections with the workforce and see what's happening in the work world and what are the lessons we can bring back to our kids. And then our school committee summer meeting calendar. So just as a reminder, last year, and this committee can decide how they want to proceed. We met once in the summer last year. We met in July. It was July 23rd. And then we had started our regular meetings in September. So the committee, Kristen, you guys, however you want to play it in terms of 1 meeting or 2 meetings, a July and August, or just a July, we're open to any of that conversation.
That seemed to work, just having 1 meeting. I don't think, we fell behind or anything. So I'm totally comfortable with doing 1 meeting. And we typically hold our meetings on the first Wednesday of the month going forward. We could do July 24th if you guys want to look at your calendars now, because we could schedule it.
That'd be good.
It's just easier. So July 24th, I'll put that date out there if that's okay.
For me.
5:30. I don't know. Did we do a different time by any chance?
We might have.
Is there a time that?
No, I mean, if in the summertime people tend to
Wanted
bump it
to-
up earlier, like we've done, I think one of the towns this year was going to do like a 4 o'clock in the summertime because people could get there by 4 just to try to.
Okay.
Not have it be a
Is
night
there
meeting.
a preference around the table?
Earliest I could do is 4:30.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Freddie, Jen, Natasha? Was like
Anyone?
4:30
That
work?
works for me.
That's fine.
Kristen, would that work for
4:30,
you?
5:30.
4:30. I believe so.
Shall we book it?
Yes.
So Middleton School Committee meeting.
July 24th at 4:30.
And then to your point, so 2 iterations ago,
Mhm.
the committees met on Monday.
Mhm.
Most recently, we moved it to Wednesday.
Yeah.
We should probably just have a dialogue as to,
Yeah.
Paul gave me, Monday's still a possibility, Wednesday's still a possibility. Those are kind of open, so it's up to the committee to
4:30?
decide.
July 24th? Yeah.
All right. So, so we used to have them on Mondays at 5:30, and then we moved them to Wednesdays at 5:30. That just worked with our schedules better.
5.
I need 5:30. So I'd like to keep it 5:30.
Yep.
Okay. I can do. I like the Wednesdays. I don't know about you guys if it works for your schedule better, or if there's a big conflict that you see for Wednesday nights.
Not that I know of.
All right. Why don't we keep it the first Wednesday of the month, 5:30?
Perfect. And that's it for me.
So the first one would be September something.
4th. Yep. I'll have to add that later. Okay. So 5:30, first Wednesday. Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll move on. So, report of the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Mr. Greenberg.
Good evening. What was included in the drive and was emailed to, did everyone get it? New members get it? Was emailed to everybody was the financial report that I'm communicating for the month of June, even though June is not done. But I wanted to give everybody some insight as to where I think we're heading as we get ready to wrap up the fiscal year. So I don't think there was anything extraordinary about this fiscal year as far as our financial circumstances. And you'll see that in the detail, when you get into the general fund and you look at the line-by-line detail, I've added projections and some other components that feed the forecasting and projections for this fiscal year. And so at this point, I'm anticipating that we'll have a surplus in the general fund of around $52,000. That is just a forecast. It's designed to be wrong, that it's constantly changing. Even though we're in the month of June, there'll be things that we will finalize, and that number will change. So with that being said, there's a couple of things that I want to communicate to you that, as you know, George was our liaison for, I think, 10-plus years.
Wow.
And so we would always talk a lot. And George and I have differing opinions about things. George comes from municipal finance. That was his professional career. And I've been doing this, as you know, for 23-plus years. And I try to apply sound business practice, or what I'll call common sense, versus what municipal law requires on certain things. And I'll fight that fight all day. No one has heard me deviate from my perspective. And where I'm going with this is that as we get ready to close the books, and we are in a positive circumstance, that we are going to get into the process. When we close them, our practice has been that we authorize the superintendent to close the books. And the reason why is you may not be meeting during a time period that really coincides with the closing process. And the closing process isn't just the schools, it also ties in with the towns, and there's reconciliation. So there's a lot of moving parts with it. And so that's our practice, and that's not really the issue at hand. But the issue for discussion or consideration, when you authorize the superintendent to close the books, I have two recommendations for the committee, and that's all they are, is recommendations. One of them you don't avoid. If we have a surplus, funds get turned back to the town. The question becomes, well, how much do you turn back to the town? And so one of the things I always watch is our revolving accounts. Specifically the big ones like preschool, and then you get the before and after school program. So we watch those. And we have, when we develop the budget, we have other funding sources. They come from grants and they come from revolving funds. And so we'll take money from the revolving funds, i.e. preschool, and we'll apply it to the operating budget. And in that case specifically, it would be like special education teachers and special education aides. And because we're in a positive situation, when we get to this point of the year, I will recommend to the committee, authorize the superintendent to revisit how much we apply to the operating budget. So if we have a circumstance where we can apply less and save it for a rainier day, good for us, all right? It can become like, like an auditor can look at it and say, well, that looks like you're generating a profit, and no, we're not, but that's what they'll look at when they're closing the books. This was your opening balance, this was your closing balance. And it can become a hit on a management letter. So that's the thing that George and I debate about. Because if something does happen and we need to use that fund appropriately to take care of a situation that was unanticipated, I always get concerned that we will have to put a freeze on the operating budget, and therefore something else is held hostage, if you will, for lack of a better term, because we don't have that other funding source. And don't get me wrong, Middleton is very good, very generous to us. It's just a mindset that I have that I'm very conservative in that manner. So that's why when I say to the committee, authorize the superintendent to close the books, that I'll have the recommendations will be, in this case, allow them to look at the revolving funds and then turn back to the town. And the areas when we talk about turning money back to the town, if we have a surplus, like in the health insurance, you turn that back. Special education tuitions, you try to turn that back. So when I say to you that we have a surplus of 52, we take full offsets, that surplus could go up to 152. So that's why it's a moving target. And so I'll stop there and answer any questions that the committee may have regarding the financials.
Can you give an example of an unforeseen circumstance? Like what?
In general terms, special education. Special education is and Matt, you can correct me if I misspeak, and Matt giving me that look because it's like I'm always picking on special ed. I'm not picking on special education. Special education is the most volatile portion of our operation. you can have a student move in, and that student can be a six-figure expense. And I'm not talking $100,000, I'm talking $300,000. And for a budget like ours, we don't have a $50 million operation. We're a $12, $13 million operation, and that's serious. That's 2%, 2+%, that's a problem. So I think we have a student, that's an expensive student, and that's as far as I'll go with that. And yeah, that's my example.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things that we talk about often, that we'll continue to talk about is, budgeting in the fall for the following year, especially within the special ed world, it's just difficult to do. We have move-ins, we have move-outs, we have needs that pop up, we have needs that are not needs anymore. So we spend a lot of time when we're building the budget trying to forecast with everything that we know, principals, staff members, all that. But Steve's right. I mean, it could be a situation where one student or one family moves into the district or out that has a significant impact on what he's talking about for the end of year piece of it.
So Steve, right now it's a surplus. What's the likelihood if it could go, say it goes negative?
It won't.
Very unlikely then. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
It won't. If we had a situation, I mean, I would have to absolutely miss it. And I think we would have seen the writing on the wall, like something's going wrong.
From a fluctuation perspective, within a very few number of days.
And as you've been getting, I won't say monthly, let's call it at least quarterly, you've been getting financial reports, and we're looking at it, that there just would have been something off, like something's really overexpending, and that's definitely not the practice as far as the principals are concerned, or Ms. Elliott, or Steve Goditis. I mean, everyone's working within the financial boundaries that they have. And Matt does as well. It's just special ed is the most volatile one, and you can have a very high ticket cost come in, and that is the one that we always have to keep an eye on.
Steve, this is something, I don't know the answer. Can you talk us through the preschool line?
In terms of what you see in the financials?
Yeah.
So what you're looking at is that's a revolving account.
Yep.
And what I mean by a revolving account is when we get to the end of the fiscal year, instead of those funds closing out to the town's general fund, those balances carry over. That's a revolving fund. And then you have state and federal grants, same thing, but you need to spend those grants within the timelines that are required under the laws or the rules of the grants. So with the preschool, you have an opening balance, and then what happens is you have revenues coming in through the course of the year for registrations, for the different programs that people will enroll in. So that's the revenue stream that comes in. And then you have expenses. And right now, when you look at the preschool, you're like, nothing's charged there. There's hardly anything there, and there's a balance of $500,000+. You're absolutely right. And the reason why is I wait until the end of the fiscal year to move those expenses to the preschool revolving. So it will be, for example, I think our offset for this year is $365,000 off the top of my head. So what will happen is we'll look at the special ed teachers that are Howe Manning, the preschool teachers, the preschool aides, appropriate expenses, and those expenses will be journaled away from the general fund and journaled into the preschool revolving account. So you'll watch those expenses go up. And so that's why it will happen after the fact, and during the summer when we're not meeting, because that will be part of the closeout process.
Why can't it be done during the year?
Because
So
it goes back to my position that I want to have as much flexibility as possible, and that we could do it through the course of the year, we absolutely could. But when I say to the committee, hey, let's revisit these revolving accounts and see if we can save it for a rainier day, that's what the one journal entry allows me to do. I mean, I can do it anytime, but instead of touching a lot and creating a lot of journal entries or making a bigger mess on the books, we do one sweep at the end. That's what I do with revolving accounts. Grants, we do it through the course of the year.
This is just a newbie question. What are Fuller Meadow gifts and Howe Manning gifts?
The Fuller Meadow, that's exactly what they sound like. So they function like a revolving account or a local account.
Okay.
And what it is those are donations that come from individuals, parents, families. And so when you look at that, the other thing is too, that we used to have student activity accounts. Student activity accounts have a whole set of rules and regulations that have to be followed. And as of recent, there was a guideline put in place concerning having to have them audited on a scheduled basis. These audits are expensive. We're not a high school or a middle school where we have a lot of student activity, a lot of clubs. You know, these are elementary schools. So student activity accounts are funds raised by the kids for the kids. You cannot, I don't mess around with those at all. You can't pay someone stipends out of there. You can't get creative. That's the way it is. So I was very restrictive about it, and then the audit thing kicked into play, so that became a problem. Working with the auditors, they allowed us to move a lot of those dollars into the gift accounts, and when we came back to the school committee, we said, the auditors are blessing this, and that when we expend from the gift accounts, it'll be Dr. Carrero, Mr. Sforza that will make a recommendation to the committee, and the committee will vote and approve it. So it's always memorialized. So that's the way we're doing it, but that's what the gift account has evolved to at this point, for most schools.
Steve, just to underline your point on preschool, that balance, once you apply, will change.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, by a great amount.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So when we talk about it, if we said right now, I believe we said that the offset was $360,000. So look at that 508,
Okay.
subtract 360 from it. But I'm trying to, like, when you see the financials, I'm massaging that a little bit. But if we take the full amount, then we'll be turning back more.
Okay.
And that's all. So that's why I'm saying flexibility and all that. George is against that. He does not agree with my thinking on that, and I want to make sure you know that.
So your confidence level that the 52,000 surplus, just, is it?
I
Do you
feel
think it's going
good,
to be
you
a
know.
lot more than that? Do you think it's going to be a lot?
I think it could, right now, I feel good about it. I'm not saying it's going to land like that.
Yeah.
I know it's going to change. If anything, it could be more.
Yeah, okay.
And why I say it is we have the flexibility with the revolving accounts. You take the full offsets, then that turn back is larger. You know, there's nothing more for us to buy. We've really established a certain relationship and protocol in terms of what we purchase, how we've enhanced programs. So that's why you're not seeing a longer list of recommendations of buying this or buying that we try to take care of that. And if something comes up through the course of the year, we try to bring that in front of the committee at the right time or the appropriate time so that those things get blessed, and then we move forward from there.
I have a question.
Yep.
Why is the utilities balance projected to be so low?
When you say projected to be so low, Fred, you talking about over?
No, under. 43,000.
So that's overexpended.
Utilities?
Right now, that looks overexpended. What we have in there right now is when we do our process, Nancy, and she's does our accounting and reconciliation and general ledger. When we start the fiscal year, we'll encumber for the whole year what we think the utility costs will be. And so we'll look at that and we'll see if the encumbrances need to be released. But with Howe Manning, especially with Howe Manning is expensive in terms of electricity, and it could push it over. Like utilities could go over, and we could budget conservatively on that to help bring the budget within a certain point. Looking at that the school committee has bottom line spending authority, but the first part that I'll look at as we get into the closeout mode will be, can we release these encumbrances? We have money encumbered anticipating the expenses. So we haven't received the June bill yet, and so there's probably a chunk of change encumbered that we may wind up releasing, which will bring that down, that negative balance down.
But but it's almost, 25%?
I understand. But the way we encumber, we'll look at things and we'll encumber high. So when we look at utilities as well, it's not just electricity, heating, fuel, water, waste removal, so on and so forth. So we could have high encumbrances in all of it.
That's under though, isn't it?
No, it's overexpended. That's when you see the negative like that, it's overexpended.
Oh. That account's gonna be negative 43,000.
I see your point. I think we have a little error here. No, it should be under. So there's something, you know what it is? It's because it's formulas, I have my formulas referencing the wrong thing. I see your point. So I'll double check it and I'll email you all with that correction. All right, so that should be, that's a little off, so we'll fix that. It's not referencing the right thing as far as the projected ending balance. Or is it? No. I'm gonna go back. I'm taking it back. Formula references are right. We gotta look at the encumbrances. And we gotta look at the last bills. If the encumbrances can be released, then that number will change. That's forecasting. You know, it's not the balance, it's not budget, year-to-date transactions, balance. There's also, if you look at all the detail, all the forecasting components in the columns in the detail. So I'm just going back to what I was saying. It's not a formula issue. That's forecasting. So we'll look at the encumbrances, and if we can release it, we'll release it. If not, we could have an over expenditure in that area.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
Yeah, in the detail, if you go into the detail, Fred, and you look at those utility lines, you'll see line by line, and when you look at the columns that I've added that have, there's an implied income column, it's a column that also, those two blue columns, you look at other things,
Yeah.
and then you look at the encumbrance column in the green, you'll see that those are the things that we're anticipating. So when you get to the utilities, electricity, natural gas, water, waste removal, telephone, you know, what did we encumber for a year versus what's actually happening, and some of those encumbrances are still in play.
Okay.
All right.
Seems high, though. is what
I get
I'm
it.
saying, yeah.
And if we get conservative in that manner, and if we can release them, then we release them. And it brings that overage down. Other questions on the financials? So at this point, I'd ask the school committee for a motion to authorize the superintendent to close the books for FY19.
Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion for the superintendent to be able to close the books for the fiscal year.
Okay. Anyone want to second that?
I second that motion.
Thanks, Jen. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And we'll keep you posted as we go forward, and you will get a closeout document. And when we talk about closeout, so you know, it's not just what we have to do on our end. When we wrap up everything we do, we're a department of the town has to close its books. And so once the chief financial officer, she's done, then we do a final reconciliation to make sure everything balances out so that we can open up FY20.
When does that happen?
That will like
When does
legally,
it- Yeah.
legally, your books need to close by July 15th.
Okay.
All right? But there's a whole cleanup process that goes on throughout the whole summer.
Okay.
You'll be able to provide an update at our July meeting.
I'm sorry?
You'll be able to provide an update at our July meeting as to where we are. We're the 24th.
The reason why I'm doing that is like, yes, it makes sense, but I just don't want to tell you that, yeah, this is the closeout. We still could be doing some final pieces in terms of reconciliation with the town. All right, we'll be done, but
Right.
we need to reconcile.
Okay.
All right. So the next thing is the food service report. And so that only takes us through the month of April, waiting for the May invoices, and we'll be looking at the June invoices. With the food service program, you'll see that the survey did go out. In May, we sent out 2 Connect Ed messages to the families over the course of the week, looking for participation. So we got the results of the survey. So let me do a little touch on the survey first. So we did receive the results of the survey. I'm going through it now, and I need to spend more time with it, and with everything else that's been going on, I don't want to rush it. So once I have spent more time with it, we're going to send out the results of all 3 towns to everybody. Want to put together some type of simple summary so it's easy to do a first blush, and then you can roll into the detail. I'll be meeting, I spoke with the director today, and got, what her perspective on the year was, and, some feedback there. Looking forward into next year, things that we'll want to discuss, whether it's July or August, will be, we will want to have a deeper discussion about the program, where we want to go. We want to look at possibly price point. I have surveyed other districts to see where they're at, and not a lot are at 325. And I'm saying, that's why I'm saying it should be a discussion point. There are a couple, when we talk about elementary schools, but a lot of them that have responded back to me are more at the $3 range. As far as the mission of the program, we'll want to have a reasonable discussion about that. Keeping in mind all the components and going into it eyes wide open when you make a decision about what the program in part should be. I'll caution the committee, you do not want to get into like dictating a menu and things like that. It's like, you can have these guidelines and recommendations, but you get into that, then you like really own it. For lack of better words, I don't have anything more eloquent to communicate to you. So it'll be a deeper discussion as we're wrapping up, and, you know, the whole discussion, for me, the premise will be solvency. You know, are we gonna be able to sustain or realize solvency depending on where we want to take the program? So for the financial report that you see in front of you, it again carries us through the month of April, and that our overall participation in terms of number of meals is up by a little more than 4,000. And you'll see that it's running a deficit, but I want to see where May and June end up. And when we talk about guaranteeing solvency, solvency means that the vendor will not take its administrative fee, so that will probably bring it closer to zero as we get close. But I want to see where May is and where June is. June's only half a year, or half of the month, excuse me. And with May, we'll see where they are in terms of if they're buying into a lot of inventory or not, see if that lowers cost. So I will stop and answer any questions that the committee may have concerning the food service program or the financial report.
So Stephen, looking at this, at the end of last year, the program was $27,000 to the negative, and right now we're at 10. So it's an improvement over where we are last year, but we still have to see how May and June unfold.
Correct. And Scott, just
Months to
as,
go. Could go up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope not 17,000, that would be, that'd be some 90-day period. But anyways, the thing about this, so I want to make sure we're clear, is that when we're talking about this financial information, it's literally coming from those invoices that we do not factor in this, so that we keep it apples to apples. We're not factoring in the stuff that we did with buying kitchen equipment or any maintenance or anything like that.
Sure.
That is strictly the
Program.
performance of the program.
Yeah.
That's it, and that's my reference point for this. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that, and we'll see where May is. We should see that in the next few days, and then June will probably be, probably July before I see that.
Just as another reference point to that, in the drive, there's another folder called Food Service. And we got some pictures sent to us today from Howe Manning and the service for lunch that was today. So there's about 5 pictures in there kind of showing what the students had as options for their meals. These just came in towards the end of the day today, and we thought we'd share them with the committee.
So I have a question.
I am hungry.
Be off the record.
Yeah.
So at this point, we sold 4,000 more lunches, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a good thing?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, then when you sell more, it is. I mean, that's
I
strictly,
mean, not even just money.
no, any increase in terms of participation is a good thing. You know, it's not a bad thing at all. Is it enough? No, I mean, when you look at where participation needs to be to see real solvency, you gotta be closer to 50%, you know, of the daily student attendance, if you will,
How will we know?
in the 30s. And I don't know if we'll ever get to 50. I mean, it's,
I thought it was Peter Brett.
you really have to, you would have to do things to that menu that just may not be in the best interest of health and wellness and all those things. It's really what you'd have to do. You know, and someone may disagree with that, you know, and that's where we have to have that discussion.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you. And the last part is there's a document that's included with the bills, so that everyone needs to sign.
Yep.
And then what the committee will want to do is vote to have one designee and then alternate, and maybe the alternate should be everybody,
Yeah.
you know, with regard to signing bills and payroll warrants. So I just want to make sure every member signs that document, and then if someone would make a motion
Can you explain,
authorizing.
Steve, what that means, just for our new members, in terms of your people's availability and where you have to go and what you have
Right.
to do?
So we're, from my perspective, we're as flexible as possible, but as you see, there are bills and payrolls that need to be signed, and then it's frequent. It is frequent. Nancy's constantly generating bill warrants. We want to try to get these things processed as quickly as possible. Payrolls every 2 weeks. So it is a commitment for a school committee member to either come to central office in Boxford, or we bring them to town hall and they'd be in town hall, probably accounting, I don't know if it's accounting office or town administrator's office, for someone to sign those warrants. And I think Fred, Amy, Mark, they've been really good with it.
Yep.
And so we just wanna, you guys need to know what that means, that we will need someone that is able to get there and sign them, that we do not want to delay it, if at all possible, because that means that things may not get processed, and that means payroll may not go out, or bill, or checks won't go out. So that's what it means. And did I answer the question?
In the past, we had it set up that we all had to go in and sign.
Correct.
This was new, I don't
Yeah.
know, a couple of years ago, where we just set it up so that one person could represent the committee. And I think we should spend a few minutes just talking about
Sure.
sort of, that process. Because we did just run into a problem last week where, we were down
Yes.
to the wire and just getting payroll
Right.
signed off on. So our two former members were around, were local most of the time, as well as, Freddie, you've always been able to get to town hall.
Well, we're all local, aren't we?
Not really, I mean,
During the
I'm in
day.
Waltham during the week, Christy was in New York.
I mean, we're
so
all
it was a little
Middleton
more-
residents. Right.
It was just more difficult to get there during office hours, town hall office hours. So just to put that out on the table, if you are local during town hall office hours, if you could just shoot a note to everyone saying, I got it, I signed it, that would be really helpful. I
We're
know.
talking Middleton Town Hall, not
Yes.
Officer. Okay.
So we've also done it, I don't know if this is even on, I don't know if it matters. It could either be Middleton Town Hall, and I think, or last year, or 2 years ago, it was at
Hal Manning.
Hal Manning. So I don't know what's more convenient for the people that think that for the members of the committee that think that they can get to, and I'm looking at you guys just because I don't know what your schedules are. If you think you could be like first in line to sign off on bill warrants and payroll.
I don't think it should be a
Whatever is more-
designated person.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just
Th-
saying
that-
it.
The paperwork is.
No, the paperwork is saying that we are allowed to have one person sign for everyone. But it doesn't matter who it is, right?
You need a designee and an alternate. Like, so if, Steve, I think, is promoting the idea of an alternate as any member. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And then the
Maximum
designated
flexibility.
person is sort of one person. So in the past, I think it was, Freddie, to your point, like, Amy's the designated person, Mark was the alternate, they could go in and sign, because everybody had sort of agreed on it, because we took a vote at the meeting posted on, today, June 5th, or whatever the case may be. Did you clear that with Town Hall, that the alternate could be
All
any
of us?
member?
Yeah, I absolutely will. I don't think anyone's gonna have an issue with it.
That's how we did it this year.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but definitely will. I mean,
So I
Nancy.
think we would want one
I
designee.
didn't think we
Yeah.
had
It, it can be any member, can it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
When do you go? It's just to the town hall? It's not,
So, yes, right now, the way it's set up is you get an email on your, in your, Middleton, the middletonps.org.
which I'm
email.
assuming I can put on my iPhone.
Yes,
Yeah.
you definitely can.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
usually
you just get an
every other
email from Nancy DeLay, who works in the administrative office, saying, bill warrants are at town hall, can someone go down and sign them?
And when you get the email, how much time do you have before you, do you think you have to go that day?
Dings you again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really
It's
like, as soon as you
okay.
can.
Right, okay. I mean, I go to Fuller Meadow a lot, so is there gonna be,
can
over
do
the
that.
summer, is there gonna be a lot though?
What'll happen is, there'll be something in July, but then it's gonna really ramp up in
Usually every other week.
August.
So it's every other week you go like once?
Yeah.
So it's not that much, okay, yeah, I mean, I can be designated to go there.
Jen, that would be great, thank you.
You sure?
Do I write this?
I hope so. Is this Gmail?
And for both bills and payroll?
Gmail, I have Gmail. What, I'm sorry, what's?
Both bills and payroll? Are you comfortable?
Yeah,
Great.
just, sure.
You'll get familiar with,
Right.
what they, in this.
Yep.
I hope I can handle
And then alternate, Steve, you're recommending any member?
I'd say any member, we need maximum flexibility, and I don't think anyone would have an issue with that.
So just write in any member.
All members.
All members?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
And if you can just vote it.
Yeah, we need a vote now.
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion would be for Jen to serve as the designee for,
Okay, so for Jen to serve, if someone could make a motion for Jen to serve as the designee for to sign off on payroll warrants on behalf of the board/commission. Someone like to make that motion?
With alternates.
Yeah.
With alternates being all committee, all members, and she would also be, can I do
Yep.
with both? Okay. And also sign off on payroll,
With the alternates being all members.
all members.
That would be the.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Christy.
Second.
Thank you, Natasha. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone needs to sign, so we need to.
Okay.
vote on June the 5th,
Okay.
and then everyone needs to sign. And Steve, you'll return that to town hall?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Kristen
well,
says it that way, everyone signs the bottom and gives it to Steve, and Steve will bring it to town.
Yeah, it'll, yeah.
Great.
All right, so I'll just pass this around for it to be signed. Okay, thank you. All right. Should we move on to report to the principals?
Do you
Freddie's
want to
gone
hear
most of the time.
buildings as
Why,
well
how much is
as
it?
update
Just every
personnel?
other week you.
Sure, yes,
So we'll go
yes.
quickly.
Yep, do your,
There's been a ton of special events at Fuller Meadow as far as enrichment from the PTO, so thank you to the PTO for all of those things. Grade 1 had the traveling touch tanks earlier in the month. Huge thank you to everyone who volunteered for Family Cooking Night, which was a huge success. And thank you to Amanda Libby, Jean Bentley, Natasha Bansfield, and Alicia DePisa, who really were instrumental in pulling that off. It was a great event. And actually to Myra and her staff, who did so much prep work for that. It was amazing. So it was really a great event. We had our walk to school day at the end of May, and it was a beautiful day, and students enjoyed it. We had, you may remember, we sort of deferred in the fall. We just didn't feel like the kids were necessarily ready to be walking the neighborhood in the back. So they enjoyed their time in the spring. We currently have Officer McParland coming in for DARE for K-2. He always loves it, and he's very excited that we've had cool weather because the building is not that hot. Usually he is sweating. So he's not. The building has been very comfortable. Friday we had the Kids Strong program come. It's actually called Kids Shine now. And it is a program run by a local occupational therapist who focuses on teaching students to have strong bodies, strong minds. There was a positive message that went along with it, so it went really well. Masco graduation was on Friday, and again was very proud to say that Fuller Meadow had a huge representation as far as staff. So it's always a fun event. For me, it's a professional, something I look forward to professionally each year. And each year I feel like the Fuller Meadow staff gets a little bit larger, and I'm thankful that Masco continues to invite us to walk through that because it is a very great event. And last week we also had our STEAM Carnival, which was amazing. We had over 320 people there. I think, what did they say, 15 events, 15 different booths. It was a great event and so thank you for sponsoring that.
and it was sorry to interrupt,
was.
but that was impressive. The amount of work that the teachers and the 6th and 5th graders, could be all grades, 4th graders, put into it was so impressive. I loved it.
It's a lot of fun.
We did not want to leave. It was so much fun.
The inaugural year of it last year was amazing.
Yeah.
But to think of how great of a start that was and how much it grew in just 1 year's time to what it was this year,
Yeah.
it's the momentum it's getting is wonderful.
Yeah, it was excellent.
So 2 Wednesdays in a row, I've been to the State House in Boston, which has been exciting. James is going to talk about our trip today, but I just wanted to share with you, we had first grader Thea Mace, who wrote she and her class entered the My Ideal School contest from the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And so they send out a prompt each May or June for kids to write about and draw what their ideal school is. So I'll just pass this around. There were over 2,500 submissions. And there were 13 winners. And they don't necessarily choose based on how neat the printing is or anything like that, you'll notice that theirs is totally child-focused. It is very child-centered, with inventive first grade spelling, which is very appropriate for first grade. And you'll see that some other applicants were tweaked a little bit, but she represented Fuller Meadow very well. It was really my pleasure to go and see her there. So I just want to pass that around. She is on the second page. As far as staffing goes at Fuller Meadow, so luckily we don't have as much hiring as we did last year, so that's good. We are adding, as you know, a first grade. So we have been able, after over 130 applicants, we called in 13 people to interview. We had 4 people do model lessons. I am very happy, proud, and pleased to report that Lindsay Foden, who is our Merrimack Fellow this year, has been appointed to the first grade position for next year. It is awesome.
Great.
It is.
Such a good program.
Yes, it is a great program. It has done exactly what I think we want it to. She worked with Katie Texera this year, and it's been a great match, and now she'll have her own classroom. It's great. I'm very excited about that. Mrs. Alvarado is actually taking a year leave of absence for her for child rearing because she had a baby in the fall. So we have hired Lisa Rupp, who is a music teacher in Dracut, for a long-term substitute position for the entire school year. So that's exciting. Many thanks to Susan Fisher, who has stepped up and stepped in for in Mrs. Alvarado's absence, but she was really just helping out for the year, and so we're moving on with a different music teacher next year. And just some information that came through since the last school committee meeting. Katie Provo, the special ed coordinator, has tendered her resignation. She is moving on to another position in the state, pretty nearby. So we are looking for a special education coordinator, and we've been interviewing and hope that we have a replacement definitely before the next time we meet. Okay. Great. Any questions for me? Thank you.
We've been having lots of fun in the spring. We too got a very nice walk to school day. We got wonderful weather, and the kids really enjoyed themselves, and it was a well put together event. And appreciate all the support we get from the community, from the fire department and the police for shutting down 114 for us and causing traffic delays, but it means a lot to the kids, so it was excellent. We had our Memorial Day assembly, school-based. It was excellent. The band sounded fantastic. They played the entire military medley. The kids sang along to it. Gary Bent from Veteran Services in town was able to join us, and he spoke to the students, and I think it's very powerful for them to get to actually hear his message before heading into a Memorial Day long weekend. I mean, I talked to them about the history of the day and what it means, but I think when a veteran stands before them and kind of provides like some real life context to it, it just kind of sinks in the message of it. So that I thought was a great assembly. STEAM Carnival, we spoke about that in its second year, going really, really strong, definitely growing and definitely embodying the different things we want to do in terms of innovation and progressive thinking, and how it kind of enhances the artivation model that we've started, and has great connections to the type of experiences that sometimes exist within project-based learning. We had our Exploration Day last Friday in May. There was a lot of really good work going on in every single room. Kids were highly, highly engaged. At times it's been a concern as to what attendance might look like on that day, and we had the highest and best attendance that we've had in the last couple of years, which was outstanding. Kids were super focused. I really appreciate the amount of parent volunteers who come in to support in the classrooms. Rooms were filled with parents, and it enables for kids and teachers to allow far more creative things to happen when all those extra hands are on deck, and it allows the kids to really stay focused on what their passion projects are. So that was a ton of fun. There were a lot of pictures that were put up on the Hal Manning blog about it. I got a special guest that day. I had my principal of the day, who was a preschooler from the 3-year-old program this year. So he accompanied me and went room to room, and he had the official job of taking pictures of all the projects that were being built and then helping load them onto the website. So he was a big helper that day. He did an excellent job, and the kids were in awe of him, and he had instant celebrity status, so that was a lot of fun. Grade 6 is doing their land yachts right now. some incredible engineering going on, and they're racing them across the gymnasium. So that's been a lot of fun to watch and to visit. That's a great project that comes back perennially, and really good work. I think good risk-taking, good problem-solving by the students with the way they set those up and they build them. Our grade 6 is heavily involved in the Masco transition at this point. They've gone to Masco, and they went there, and they were there at the Topsfield students and the Boxford students for an orientation. And then Masco came and visited at Hal Manning this morning to kind of further getting the kids ready for what the experience is going to be like. Today, as Dr. Carrero was indicating, we had the Mascu event going down in Boston, and it was a wonderful turnout. I think Middleton was very well represented at it. We had a team of teachers who had worked with kindergarteners and a team of teachers who had worked with fourth graders, and we had several kindergarteners there to showcase their work, as well as several fourth graders to showcase their work. I'll take you through the two different projects. The kindergarten one, a great example of cross-curriculum integration in project-based learning, in that you had the art teacher, classroom teacher, and was it the librarian, were all there. And what the kids did is they had studied in the library what community helpers were, and that project had been underway. And so what they did was then they connected it into mathematics in their study of two-dimensional and three-dimensional shapes. And they built these towns, and they built the buildings, and they built the people, and the trees, and everything else, and that's how they brought in the math component. They designed an entire road system, and then they programmed these Bebot cars to be the community helpers, and the cars were able, kindergartners could program right there, and they could train them or program the car to drive a specific route through the town to make different stops and make different errands. So it could start at one building, go forward, turn right, stop at another building, turn again, continue to drive, and stop at a third spot. So it's an amazing blending of I think, math, engineering, technology, different teachers coming together to kind of bring their expertise together to tie all the learning. And the kindergartners did a really nice job explaining it to the guests who stopped by their booth.
Wow, that's really great.
Yeah, very advanced stuff, very exciting. Fourth graders, part of their social studies curriculum is to study the different regions of the United States. And they do have a whole entire curriculum that goes along with that, but we're always thinking about rethinking learning and making it more engaging and more relevant and more rigorous. And what they did was they had studied the Northeast and they had studied the Southeast, but when they got to the Northwest and the Southwest, they wanted to change how they did it. So they reinvented the entire learning experience by redesigning it as The Amazing Race. And kids were broken into teams, and it was literally they would get on the internet. They used an app called Trip Finder. They would get clues to go to find specific stakes. When they got to those states on the computer, they would drop little pegs right on them. And then they could actually go down and they could see, like, you can do this on the internet or through Google. You can actually see, like, the live view of what that street looks like or what that destination in that town center looks like. So they could seek out certain information that they were supposed to find there. And they were up in Anchorage, Alaska. They were out in Hawaii. They were on Waikiki Beach. They were going to all these amazing places. They were able to learn all of the social studies content that they were supposed to about the different regions through the different tasks that they were given and the different clues that were dropped off to them. So an incredible example of teachers working together to rewrite curriculum and kids just absolutely falling in love with the project for how engaging it was. So
they were acknowledged by Representative Brad Jones as well with citations, which was really nice.
Yeah,
Really
It
great.
was really nice.
yeah. So that was some very special stuff being done and some very hard work by a lot of teachers, and great support from those parents for helping us get those kids down to the State House today to do that.
James, one question.
Yes.
So when something like that program
Yes.
is hugely successful,
Mhm.
do you work with the teachers, the rest of the fourth grade teachers, to try to replicate something along
Like, how do we
those
expand it
lines?
across
Yeah,
multiple rooms? So
yeah.
that's always the goal. So great ideas kind of always will start in small pockets, and then we try to spread them out. So actually right now it is going into some of the other classrooms, and the kids who've already gone through it are now going into the other classrooms to
Okay.
actually support those students through the process.
Great.
So yes, so there is that that ripple out effect to get
Yeah.
it going everywhere.
Okay.
Yep.
And we
yep.
had talked about that because this was just one kindergarten classroom that
Yeah.
used the Bebots, and how that started was Amanda Libby had borrowed them from Merrimont College because she's a student there, and then when she had asked me, is there any way we could buy these because it's really hard to keep borrowing them? So we were able to find some money to buy her a dozen. And now, you know, she said, I think I need to meet with, and actually Katie Nasser said this, I think we need to meet with the staff and show them how to use these, because, you know, the other staff doesn't even really know that we even own them yet, right? Because they just came, you know, there hasn't been that time. So getting them in the hands of teachers and allowing them some time to play with it and figure out, oh, what would this look like in a first or a second grade classroom, or even inviting James preschool teachers over, because those kids could easily use them as well.
Yeah,
so.
they could. Those were neat. And I think anytime we're thinking of like big progressive innovative change, there's always the first dock jumpers that are going to go first, and then everyone else starts to kind of line up behind them on the dock to jump in next.
Yep. Great.
We have a lot of retirees. So retiring, our school nurse Marie Perkins will be retiring. School psychologist Carol Disney. The technology teacher who's working in both schools right now, Deb Pajorni. Fourth grade teacher Judy Church. We also have one of our preschool teachers, Gina DeSisto, will be taking a year off related to having a child. Currently, we have Taryn Brown, who had taken a year off to finish her master's program, is complete and will be coming back. So she'll be going right back into fourth grade. So we're very excited.
Grade?
That's where it should be. Yeah, that's as of right now. Yeah. So we're very excited about the return of Taryn. And we have several interview committees running simultaneously for the classroom teacher that we're adding, for the school nurse, and for the school psychologist, and they're all kind of in various stages of kind of closing out that process and finalizing the selections and getting them signed. So that's very exciting, and you know, I'm sure as kind of we head into summer and stuff like that, we'll see if there's any other changes in staffing or usually instructional assistants. There's a few that I think are kind of already going to be potentially changed and things like that. Just people who are stepping on and moving on to the next step in the process for them.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Questions? Great.
So with that, we'd like to have Diane talk a little bit more, and Kira as well.
Thank you, Steve.
And Christine as well, yep, about a visit to Design 39. So as the committee may recall, different committees invest in different things. Oxford invested in professional development this past school year, and we had worked closely with a school out in San Diego called Design 39 that is doing a lot of the things that we have been talking about. They built their school sort of from the ground up, and their school is really focused on innovative teaching and inclusionary practices and social emotional learning. And so the last trip out there, we were able to send a couple folks from Topsfield and a couple of folks from Middleton as well, so we could continue to have these sort of tri-town conversations around the work that's happening with Design 39. And then I think Diane's going to connect that to some rethinking of positions here as well. So I'll turn it over.
Okay. So we were lucky enough to
Be behind us, right?
Yep. We were lucky enough to be allowed to go to visit Design 39 at the end of April. So thank you for that opportunity. And I think we were very fortunate because not only did we get to visit the school, get a tour of the school, get to talk to the teachers and the principal, and actually they're not called teachers, they're called LEDs, Learning Experience Designers. We also got to go back on Saturday and had a day of workshops led by the LEDs, led by students, and it was just a really incredible experience. And I think it was almost an experience that the other people who went did not get to have. So we almost got like a double visit.
There were over 200 educators there that Saturday that Design 39 hosted and was able to share some of the nuts and bolts of how they have created this school.
So this is just a picture of all of us who went, and so.
Across all three towns?
Yeah. I think was this the largest group that went, Scott?
I think the second group is probably largest. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and this is just to sort of give you a context of what the building looks like. It's a very large building with very large campus with 4 main buildings. Very spacious. Everything is open, and a lot of times you'll see students not being supervised by adults, passing in the hall without adults, hanging out in spots without adults, and it's sort of, you know, at one point I looked at Kira and I said, I am so uncomfortable with this, but when you really look around at what kids were doing, everyone was engaged, they were behaving, they seemed to know the rules. There was no one who I thought, oh, I should go over and talk to that kid or anything like that. So it was pretty neat to watch how students really understood what the expectation was and you know, really fulfilled the expectation at all times. In fact, I think at one point we went over to some kids who, they don't have a library, if they call it the loft, and you can just head into the loft and take a book if you need it, and you just leave with it, and then you return it when you're done with it. There's no checking it out, there's no librarian, there's nothing like that. It's just classes can go to the library. So we had seen some, they were older, students in the library, and one of us said to them, where are you supposed to be right now? And they were like, no, we're allowed to be here. And we said, no, where are you on your schedule? Where are you? And so they pretty much said, you know, we're supposed to be in this class, but we have earned the right to be able to work where we learn best, and so we can collaborate better out here where it's quiet. And so it was just neat to hear these kids being able to really talk about collaboration and their best learning space and knowing where that was.
Diane,
Yeah.
what grade range is this?
They have pre-K to 8.
I think. Yeah. And they're actually in the works talking about a high school nearby, like a high school campus to mimic. Right now, currently, their 4th graders are students that have gone through the program straight through from kindergarten. So this is their 5th year. So that any of the 4th graders have only experienced the Design 39 way.
And it's a public school, not a charter, not a private. It's just one of the schools in San Diego.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say I was not critical, but just had like a lot of questions, like wanted to know about their special education population, wanted to know about behavior, things like that. And interestingly enough, a few weeks before we went, that building had like a kind of a behavior threat, had gone on lockdown, things like that. So they are dealing with things that all of us in public ed are dealing with and worrying about and all of those things. So talking to the principal there and the teachers, they all, there were students with disabilities, and it was, they were totally included. And if they needed to be pulled out, they were pulled out to a table right outside the classroom. That's where their speech and language was. For the most part, it was in the classroom, but if it had to be, it was pulled out right. It wasn't going to an office. It was pulled out quick, immediate, really focused, targeted, and then back in the classroom with their peers. So again, this was sort of up high, and this is their kindergarten playground, playscape. Just very open. It was cool. I mean, they're in Southern California. They can have lunch outside even when it rains, because they, it's not, not like how it is here. They do have provisions for indoor eating, but for the most part, they can eat outside year round. And even that was interesting. I know the joke at Fuller Meadow is that Carrero employs 18 noon supervisors. There was one there with a whole grade level of students. So it was just really interesting. I kept saying to Christine and Kira, where are the adults? Where are the adults? They weren't there. There were not a lot of adults there. Kids just knew what the expectation was. So.
Dr. Carrero, how are they accepted into the school?
It is a lottery. And
it is a public school, but it is a lottery system, and the idea behind it to get the buy-in from the parents. The principal was saying that once they are accepted and they start through the year, if they get a couple weeks in and they're feeling a little bit uneasy, they'll have the parents come in and have the student have a conversation, and they try to keep them there for a full year. Once they have that entrance experience, a lot of the kids have just stayed straight through, and that's why they've had a lot of the 4th graders are ending up there. But it is a public school, it's publicly funded. They're part of a greater teacher union, and they work together with the other schools in the district.
But is there a waiting list?
So, can I?
Yeah, of course.
So they have, one thing they do have is a certain designated number of spots, and they, so it's lottery based. It used to be more of a neighborhood, like you'd go to the particular school in your neighborhood, but they changed that so that anybody, because there are 39 elementary schools in their district, hence the name Design 39. They were the 39th, and they built it from the ground up when they needed a new building. So they gave option to the families in the other 38 neighborhoods to opt into it, and they get on the lottery to opt in. But they do set the cap at whatever that number is that they can manage. And then there is a waiting list, and if somebody moves out in the middle of the year, those students would be able to move in on that wait list, but they're all from that same larger community.
So the criteria is geographics?
The criteria is you have to be a resident of the Poway School District, and that's the only criteria. There's no academic or any other criteria. You're just a resident in that larger community.
They do give precedent to students that have siblings. So once a student is in, they try to keep the siblings in. And like Christine was saying, they don't have bubbles of populations. So they have a certain number at each grade level, and that number stays the same. So they work from that number. And once those students that are siblings are in, then they find out how many slots they have left to provide to other students to opt in.
So that is the only, like, the biggest difference, I think, between typical public schools is, you know, if somebody moves in you know, in the middle of the year, we make room, where that's the one school out of their 39 that doesn't make room. Those children can get on the wait list for the next school year, but they would go to one of the other schools in that community, so that's
So it's
probably-
not a neighborhood school,
Right.
if that's what you're asking.
How large are the class sizes?
They
So-
were bigger.
Grade
It's
size.
interesting that, because it's really not
Fluid.
what you would think. It's fluid. They oftentimes will have teams of educators together with 45 children. Or they might have, so it's really based on, it's not your typical, everybody goes to their home room. I would say at the K-2 level, it's a little bit more like that, but then as they get a little older, that's very fluid and flexible, and they might start together with a group of 45 kids and 2 adults, and then part of the day there's, that changes depending on where kids are going and what's going on with their programming.
And the school was designed for that, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a 3rd grade classroom with 45 students, there's probably a wall that you can divide. Well, these teachers keep those walls out. So there are 45 students with usually 2 teachers, maybe an intern, maybe an IA in that room with them. And then they're trying to decide, okay, who's working on this, then they're on one side of the room, and that's all fluid as well.
And there are students receiving special education services that have other adults in the room that might need specific services in that classroom too. So there are other adults in the room.
But then we went into one kindergarten classroom, and it was just the one teacher with, 20 kids or something like that. So, and it made me feel a little that they were doing foundations lessons. They were doing read the room things, right? Readers workshop. They talked about daily 5. So structures that we already have in place here, so that made me feel better.
They're required as a public school to follow the California state standards. So they're very driven by the standards, like any other public school is, and they have set curriculum that other 38 schools are using, and so they are using those as resources as well, but they take a little bit of a different approach in how they deliver that instruction, and you're going to hear more from these ladies about the heart of what their school district is built on is the design thinking process. So they'll talk a little bit more about that, but everything they do is based on that, and which really, even when they built the school itself, they used that whole philosophy to design the school. When we were getting ready to go to this conference, the principal called me and offered me an empathy interview, is what he called it. He said, I know that our workshop is in 2 weeks. Please don't panic that we don't have set workshops already set up, because I'll be calling all the district heads from each school that's coming, and I'll email every participant and ask them to either submit online or have a conversation with me and have an empathy interview to find out what it is that you really want to learn. What do you need to know? Why are you traveling across the country to come see us. We want to make sure that we're meeting your needs. So that whole, that's really the premise, the beginning of design thinking is starting with empathy in mind. And that's how they do everything that they do starts in that way, from building that school and developing the plans to developing the workshop for us. And that's what they do with students every day as well, so.
So this just sort of shows Design 39 has gone from having regular schooling be an act of compliance really to an innovation school. They consider themselves a lab school. That's what they call themselves. And this is really of the difference between collecting the dots and then really connecting the dots. So making connections for not just students, but also the teachers that are teaching students all day long. So,
Sure. So they have a set of guiding principles as a school that the staff and students are all familiar with. They have these posted, these hexagons posted all over the walls, all over the classrooms. They focus on design thinking, connecting globally. There's a personalization and a creativity to everything they're doing. They value inquiry, the growth mindset, communicating, collaborating, and intertwining technology into those things.
You can see that's so connected to the vision we have here in the Tri-Town. So when we came across this school, it really resonated because they're doing exactly what we've been talking about and what our vision is all about in the Tri-Town as well. So these guiding principles.
Oh, okay. So as Christine was saying, the connection to the guiding principles and then what we've been doing here. Since Scott came on board, we've been doing a lot of research. He's been collecting data from all parts of the Tri-Town, from students and interviewing parents and interviewing the school committee members and staff here about what we value and what we want here. And we've worked really hard to come up with a Tri-Town School Union vision. And when we get to our vision at the end, you'll notice that a lot of it connects here to these guiding principles from Design 39. One of the biggest parts of the guiding principles that I fall in love with is the design thinking process. I used to be a 6th grade science teacher and a math teacher here at Hal Manning. James was talking about earlier the land yacht project that the 6th graders are involved in with now. It's all about Boston Duck Boat Company is trying to be more efficient and thinking about how they can better power their boats and their vehicles, their land yacht vehicles, and we have the students kind of come up with their own idea of a theme, just like the duck boats in Boston have, and they create a symbol on a poster, a sign that they can hang up on race day that kind of shows their theme. But it starts with, design thinking starts with a piece of empathy, something that you have to kind of, I like to think of it as you have to tug at the students' hearts so that their mind will follow. So the piece for the land yachts is really thinking about the environment and how we can better serve our environment in Boston by having these duck boats that are running all year round be more energy efficient. So one of their key components in the guiding principles is the design thinking, and they really put an emphasis on the empathy component and how you can pull at a student's heart and really get their mind to follow in the rest of the process.
So this, So this is a video. It's actually from Edutopia, but this is one of the experience designers, the learning experience designers that we actually met. I think Kira wanted to kidnap her and bring her home. But so we just wanted to show you sort of what design thinking looks like in action, and I think these were 2nd graders, right? So it is really applicable to all of us. So. Works. All right, it's not going to work, so why don't I, rather than wasting time, I'll put this in the drive and you guys can look at it when you get home or at another time, just for the essence of time.
Yeah, she basically goes through the components of the design thinking process. After the students are empathizing and they build that heart piece, then they start ideating and first they think of a problem that they come up with. They define a problem that they come up with based on their heart piece, that empathy piece, so they can articulate what is it that they're actually trying to learn, what are they trying to solve, and then they ideate different solutions of what they might need to know, what are they going to need to find out, and they take the time to really think about different possible solutions. They talk about a prototype and they get to build prototypes, and they really get their hands actively engaged in the learning. I love that movie, Despicable Me, and there's the part where Gru is talking to his mother, and his mother's kind of sitting in a lawn chair, and he's like, "Look, Mom, I've come up with a plan on how I can get to the moon. I really want to get to the moon." And then he says, "Look, Mom, I've drawn a picture of my solution on how I'm going to get to the moon." And then he gets to another page and he's like, "Look, Mom, I've built a prototype of how I'm going to get to the moon." And the next scene, he's like shooting up in the air. I love to show that to kids to really get them thinking about it's a process. Design thinking is a process, and it's something that you have to kind of ebb and flow from step to step. At the end, they test their prototype, and what's missing here in this visual is the communication piece. So once they've come up with some kind of valuable solution, then their job is to communicate that with others, either in their classroom, to their parents, to the community members that are involved.
So,
One of my favorite things when I was there, I'm walking through all of these different buildings, and they're all about branding the names. Like, the name really means something to them, so they don't have an office that you walk into. They have the welcoming center. So when I brought my suitcase in, and I had a little stuffed bear for my daughter Madison that I was bringing home, and they're like, "Well, come into the welcoming center and you can leave your suitcase here while you're learning for the day." Everything's about naming the spaces, and the spaces don't belong to individual adults. They belong to the community as a whole. So there's a makery, but the makery isn't one teacher's space, it's everyone's space that everyone gets to use. There's the loft, which is kind of like the library where everyone gets to experience. And in one of the hallways, they have all these inspirational quotes everywhere and student work all over the place. It was amazing to see. All of the learning is just out there for you to see all the time, and the students to be proud of. But one of the coolest things was this giant whale that was hanging from the ceiling. I was kind of baffled by what is it? And it was full of plastics, trash, basically. So I had asked one of the students to tell me about it. I was like, "What is that? That looks so cool. It looks like it should be in a museum." And they explained to me that they had seen, one of the students in their class, second and third grade class combined, had seen a picture in the news of a whale, a sperm whale that had been beached, and inside the whale was 13.2 pounds of plastic. And they had shared it with their class, and their class had done the whole design thinking process. They thought about, empathized with this sperm whale and how that really affects what's this plastic problem that we have. They did a lot of research. They looked into the Great Pacific trash heap that's in the Pacific right now, and what that problem is going to look like, and how they could make an impact and really positively impact that, what they do with their world. And they were talking to each other and coming up with different solutions, and what they decided to do was really kind of come up with a visual to share with their other school community members how much they actually use in packaging. So they went on a field trip, the second and third graders went on a field trip, and they collected all of the waste from the field trip, and they put it inside the whale. So they could say, just from one field trip, this is all of the plastic waste. So they named it the convenience whale, and they asked the question, what does convenience cost? Because every time you pick up a water bottle just to grab one instead of using a reusable one, or you use that plastic cutlery just because it's quick, that's going to cost us in the long run. So even second and third graders could really build that and empathize with the fact that they're going to have an impact on the world. This is exactly what our vision is. The Tri-Town School Union believes in nurturing and a dynamic learning environment where creative thinkers and innovative problem solvers develop that empathy, the resilience, the perseverance, self-management, and kindness needed to positively impact the world. And that was like the epitome of the whole trip. I was like, that's it. That's exactly why I need to be here. And then the second that I stepped off the campus and I was thinking I'm going back to Fuller Meadow and Hal Manning, what can I share with them? I was just beaming with excitement to share all the things they're doing. And then I thought, we're doing a lot here already. There's so much that's happening here that I want to display like the whale so everyone in the community can really see.
So some examples of things that we're already doing. A couple of grade 1 teachers are piloting a PBL unit right now, and now they're creating the Fuller Meadow Zoo, which is really exciting, and that ties right into our science program. So that is great, and hopefully those 2 teachers, to your point earlier, Kristen, those 2 teachers are sort of piloting it, hoping that everyone will do it next year. Kindergarten, also using Inspire Science, they did a PBL unit on doing research about reduce, reuse, recycle, and then they created posters and videos and prototypes to promote recycling. So it was amazing and chaotic and fantastic all at the same time. I was actually observing the teacher, doing a teacher evaluation during that time. And then finally I was like, I gotta put this away, this computer away, and then I just started helping kids because it was so incredible seeing what, and the teacher was like, no, you're not coming in and observing me again. I was like, I don't even wanna talk about it anymore. Like, that is so not important. This is what is so important. And just so fun to hear kids talking about, or seeing me in the hallway with the water bottles, and they're like, "Oh, you really should be using where's your recycle?" And it really is baby steps, and but
I worked with a small group of girls, and they made a whole video, and they went around the school doing different things. In the math classes, anyone that's gone to the math room has been collecting markers that have been dried up, and they've been counting and sorting them, and they're going to send them all to Crayola, because Crayola will recycle all of the markers, including markers from other companies. So they had done part of their video in the math room to show that we're collecting all those used up markers. It's really amazing.
Through K1 and 2 are doing STEAM challenges, and they're periodic. K1 and 2 are also working with Kira and Deidre Baker with the maker movement, getting maker materials into the classrooms, so we don't go to a space to make things. They can do so right in the classroom. But the 2 things that I really left with that I'm holding true, and I hope that Kira and I and Christine can really spend some time this summer really reflecting even more, because we came back and it was May and it was like, I've kind of not forgotten, but just haven't really been able to work on anything except for this presentation. Just what Joe, the principal, said was, we don't ever want people to think that we're the duct tape and cardboard school, because we're not. We are the empathizers. We are the ones who are solving problems. And I thought to myself, that's what I want. I want to be known as the problem solver, empathizers, and my 5 to 8-year-olds can do that. Which is so important. Empathy is built into every project they do at Design 39, and I think that we're working on that as well. The other piece that I have sort of started talking to my staff about is that my expectations are, I'm expecting that they're going to expect their students to be audacious learners, meaning they are risk takers. But in order for them to have that expectation, the teachers need to be audacious learners as well. So I want, that doesn't mean the curriculum goes out the window. We have to start, and the standards are on the floor. Like, that's where we start from. That's what we need to be working with, but we need to be thinking about problem solving, students really thinking about what could make things easier for people. How could we solve this problem in the lunchroom? Those kinds of things. And I think teachers are excited on board. I'd love to be able to send teachers to Design 39 next year. I think you guys should go. It was life-changing. And I'm not a dramatic person, but it was life-changing.
Every educator, I'm sorry, Karen.
I was gonna say the autonomy from the students all the way down to the educators, like they value every piece of learning that they're doing, every single one of them.
Everybody that's been on this trip so far has said that it's been a really pivotal experience for them as an educator, and that they've really, it's just really changed their perspective, and most of them have said, this is why I became a teacher in the first place, and it's really reminded me of that and that passion and excitement for teaching. So that it's been a very worthwhile. I mean, we've traveled the furthest of any school district. Well, no, that's not true. Other countries have been there as well. But as far as in the U.S., we are the furthest district, and it has been well worth the trip. It's not a fun flight to be on, but it's well worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would, 100% agree. Steve Goditis and Christine had met the team from Design 39 a few years back, and came into my office, excited about, oh my goodness, there's a school that's doing all these things that match the conversation that we've been having within the Tri-Town, and it really led us to begin to engage in a conversation with them. And the word I'll use, when you talk about changing, the word I use, it's unlocked people. And I don't mean that to mean that people were locked in any way, but we've been in a compliance model of education in Massachusetts for over 20 years, and it's encouraging and exciting for me to see all the things that are happening in our schools. So we have these things happening in our school, but then at the state level now, there's finally an acknowledgement that we can do better, right? We can think differently about how we deliver our program of instruction and what teaching and learning can look like, and so on and so forth. And I remember when we had Daggett come in at Parent University, a lot of you were at that Parent University, he sort of did that dramatic. Massachusetts has unbelievable public schools that are doing a great job preparing kids for the 20th century, right? And it's like, that's not good, right? We need to be preparing kids for the 21st century. And what does that look like? It looks like engaging kids in complex, authentic tasks where they are developing higher order thinking skills and solving problems. And it does all start with our standards, right? We have standards in the state of Massachusetts. If we don't want to follow standards and take MCAS anymore, well, then you become a charter school and you don't get the state money to run your schools, right? We're not in any position to do that, right? We are a public school, a member of the state public school system. We have standards that we follow. We have MCAS that we engage with. There's a conversation at the state level about, can MCAS become more of a performance-based assessment as opposed to, what did you remember the Jeopardy test, and answer the questions, because those are the things that are in your head. How do we make that to be more performance-based and performance assessment? It has been super exciting to see. The visual I'll give you is that the fence I keep thinking about around public education has been very narrow for a long time, and there's not been a lot of room for us to move. And what the conversations that we're seeing now within our schools and in our classrooms is that principals and teachers are just intentionally moving that fence out and giving themselves more room to run in terms of the work that we're doing with teaching and learning. So it is exciting. It's exciting to think about where we can take this conversation and the work that we can do in the months and years ahead. So I'll give it back to you guys.
That was it. Kira left a nice message for the Design 39 staff.
Perfect.
They left chalk out for us.
It was a great experience. They were so welcoming. I think we could have stayed there a week if they let us. And it was amazing is that those kids, they have visits all the time. They are unfazed by adults.
Sure.
They are totally unfazed by us walking through and talking to them. They were chumming it up with Kira, who, she was practically like...
I think I took a picture of absolutely everything I walked by. Yeah.
They were taking MCAS, their version of MCAS in California while we were there.
Yeah, the last thing I'll leave you with is in Massachusetts, I feel, not the Tri-Town, but just in Massachusetts, in our schools, the adults own the schools, quote, quote. At this school, the kids own the school, right? Like they're the ones they own the learning, right? They own what's happening with the work that they do, and it's not, let me part this information from me to you. They're active participants in the learning, and I think we see these great things. When I was at the State House today and seeing the great projects that our kids in Middleton are working on, we're heading in this direction, which is great. So, good work.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
So that does lead us to our next thing on the agenda.
Yes, yeah.
So James and I found out quite recently that Mrs. Cajorni was retiring, and it's happy for her. She has a great opportunity to spend time with her family, which is amazing. And we knew that this would be coming at some point, but we hadn't really visioned at this point forward what did we, how did we want to move forward with the computer lab. We knew that the computer lab needed, that whole sort of program needed a little bit of a change, but we weren't quite sure what that change would look like. So Christine, Steve Goditis, James and I have been talking a lot about and Scott, what would this look like? So we have decided to change computer lab, and at this point we're tentatively calling it the Innovation Lab, and we have posted it internally as the Innovation Lab, and we will be looking for an innovation specialist. And I do think we may post it externally as well, just together at the same time. We haven't done that yet. And so rather than students going to the computer lab once a week, they will go to the Innovation Lab. And I think we have sort of a vision like this. We need to hire someone who can narrow down our vision, because we think that in 45 minutes they're going to be able to change the world, and 45 minutes a week. So we're hoping that we're going to find someone who can really articulate what, where we need to go with this. But we see it as sort of a mix, some PBL, some design thinking, maybe some STEAM or STEM. So more to be continued. I'll let you know.
It fits with that bigger conversation around like artivation, and as we continue to refine the different things that we can expose our kids to, this is another opportunity for us to rethink a specialist subject and how we can tie it more in with the problem solving and the innovation, and having an innovation specialist I think will help us to do that. Yeah.
Be a resource for teachers.
Two things for the teacher to achieve there, and one would be to have their own curriculum that they get created, nothing that's prescriptive, but something that they create organically, much the way artivation kind of has grown, where kids come to that class 45 minutes every 5 days or so, and there's something very specific and very focused that they're taught. But in addition to that lens, there's also the lens of all this amazing work being done in the classrooms, and could this be an extension of some of those learning experiences in the classroom, so that as we start to rethink our units of instruction as project-based learning experiences, the Innovation Lab can tap into that and maintain the momentum on those projects that are being done in teachers. So I think like we're looking at through those two sides of specific things taught in the Innovation Lab, as well as reinforcing and providing extended time for the innovative project-based learning that's growing in the grade level classrooms.
Great. Keep us posted. I mean, that is just such a, all the work that you guys have been doing, and it certainly helps us. And when we come to the point where we need to make decisions and around budget and programming and things like that, it really helps us to understand your thinking and what you're seeing. And I would love continued updates at our meetings on the Innovation Lab or different programs that you're looking at, creative ways, designs, programs that are being run through the other classes and the grades. It'd just be really helpful and interesting.
And we've gotten so much support over the last couple of years in terms of all the Chromebooks and other technology pieces that we can bring in. So all of those devices, they're everywhere now. So it's not like you just need to go to the one room that actually has those devices. They're in every single classroom now, so kids are regularly using that. So you can take what was typically a tech class and really start to rethink it, because we put technology out there in every kid's hands anyway.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so.
These would be relatively quick items.
Okay.
We already did FY19 closeout. Steve already touched upon that in his report,
Yeah.
so we can put a check next to that. The TTU Masco connection, this was just an idea that came up at another committee meeting that I thought was just not a bad idea at all. And that was that, keeping that Masco connection happening and going. There are Middleton residents who serve on the Masco School Committee, and having the opportunity to, if we wanted to, invite them to a Topsfield meeting someday, a Middleton meeting someday, that's a job hazard. A Middleton meeting someday, or just a smaller group of us getting together, but just the Masco Committee is made up of members of Middleton, members of Boxford, members of Topsfield, and the Boxfield Committee was talking about inviting the Boxford members of the Masco Committee just to a school committee meeting at a future date. just so they can see some of the things that we're talking about and engage in a conversation with them, and, are there any things that we can work on K-12? So I know Tasha is, one of the Middleton reps. She's the chair, I think, this year of the Masco Committee. So just something for this committee to think about. Nothing that we need to decide today, but I just throw it out as a thought that came up in another committee, and it seemed like a good idea. And then the ALICE training module, just as a reminder, this is for the person who will be on the crisis committee as well. We'll be looking to bring on board the ALICE training modules as well. This will help us. ALICE, as you know, is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. We've done a lot of training on that across the Tri-Town. This will be more of a online component that we can add to kind of round out our training. So that's just a heads up on that, and we will follow up on that during our summer sessions as well. And then correspondence folder, I do not have anything in the correspondence folder. And my only other would be a thank you to Diane and Kira and Christine for their presentation and their excitement around the work that's going on with Design 39. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
Okay, great. Before we go into the consent agenda, I do want to recognize we've gotten some really great news from the MASS. That's our it's our Mass Association of School Superintendents. So Scott is a member of that. He's a newer member of that, and he has been awarded the President's Award for this year. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Really excited about that. I can go through and read the whole
Not
thing,
necessary.
or if you just want to tell us a little bit about.
No, I mean, it's I will just say it's really, in my opinion, I look at it as a team recognition and not an individual recognition. I really do. It takes all people rowing the boat. That's included school committee here and our staff and the administrative team. So, when I got the call, I just said, can you come to my office and shake my hand? Because I'd rather it just be that and not be a thing. And it had to be a thing, but I didn't want it to be a thing, and that's great, and we move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very proud of you.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving right along, the consent agenda. So what do I?
Bills and payroll, Steve Greenberg.
Bills as listed, please.
These are our bills and payroll. And we just motion to approve as?
Bills as presented.
Bills as presented.
The detail will be entered into the minutes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the bills as presented?
So moved.
Second? Okay. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay.
Motion to adjourn to enter into executive session for the sole purpose of coming out of executive session to just adjourn the meeting.
You think I can remember that whole? Okay.
Lorraine will.
Motion to
correctly.
Okay, great. Anyone?
I'll make the motion to adjourn for
Executive
only to
session.
come out.
Second.
We do roll call?
Roll call in.
Okay. Roll call in.
Fred Clapp, aye.
Jen Pesci, aye. Christy Carroll, aye.
Natasha Vanskill, aye. Kristen Richardson, aye.
Excellent.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you guys.
Bye.
Good work. Thank you.